champion, stellar first year in the Masters Division last year, and keeping things up so far with this Gardevoir deck. Has found lots of comfort. I know he's been playing this on and off throughout the season. And Jeremy played this deck to LAIC just a few weeks back, had some success at that event as well. It's going to be a good old Gardevoir mirror match, one that I can say I've put too much time in. So for those at home, if you're looking to study this matchup up and play against this, you're in for a treat because these are two players that know this matchup in and out.
Now, what would you say, Ethan, are like the important cards in this matchup? Yeah, looking at both players' lists, what would you say are the big things about the matchup in general? Yeah, which attackers would you focus on? How would you try to develop this matchup?
So personally, I think the biggest thing is, do you have Kirlias in your prizes? And for Jeremy, having the refinement Kirlia is not what you want to see. Mirage Step is so important. This is a battle not about big damage, but about resources. How can you develop your board so that when players go down to low prizes, you sustain the Ionos and you can find Gust plus big KO on Gardevoir EX and win the prize trade over?
Now, there's been a lot of debate in Gardevoir whether to play Battle VIP Pass or not. Are you a Battle VIP passer or are you a Battle VIP non-passer?
I feel like when you say passer, you mean like you're passing up on playing it. All right, I'll answer it straightforward. I play Battle Pass in the deck because there are some matchups where you need to pop off. If you want any chance to beat Miraidon, you need to have a crazy turn one and a crazy turn two. But for Caleb here, I think Caleb is actually playing a pretty interesting version of this list. I need to just go ahead and double check it to make sure. Caleb played this deck with 4 Fog Crystal at LAIC, something that not a lot of people are playing it with, and this time has sort of changed things up a little bit. It's just playing the 2 Fog Crystal for Battle VIP Pass. Jeremy's side, I know, was also not a Battle VIP Pass player come LAIC, so we'll have to see these lists, but Caleb taking the time, important first deck search. It seems sort of simplistic, but as Gardevoir going first in the mirror match, all you need down is just Ralts, energy attachment, and you're good. And we see Caleb already having the Mirage Step in hand is actually just going to go ahead and attach here. Actually, it's the level ball too, so this is exactly what you want to see here on turn 1.
Yeah, the ideal start, and then you go through your deck, you see that no Kirlias are prized, you know you're in for a good time, right? I think the one thing that Caleb would love to have, not necessarily this turn, not necessarily this turn, but the turn after, would be the Jirachi, right? To protect from the Cresselia that we are seeing right here, in case Jeremy is able to be more aggressive with a turn 2 Rare Candy Gardevoir EX, but if there's a Jirachi on the bench, that's not going to be a big problem. So Caleb off to a fantastic start, and it's going to be up to Jeremy to do something about this, and he did prize 2 Battle VIP passes, so the chance of him having a Battle VIP pass in his starting hand are way lower than they would normally be.
Oh, this hand is terrible. There's nothing in here. Just an energy. And
Not
that's
even
it.
a Ralt.
I mean, you have Zacian, but I don't even think you. That's just it. That's the pass. And I mean, as Caleb, I wouldn't even do anything. I would just step.
Yeah.
You have so much tempo. How do you even lose from this point?
Absolutely, yeah. No, not even worth it to go for the knockout to win this turn, because you know your opponent doesn't even have a Ralts down. You have 4 Kirlias and a Ralts down. You would have to get, like, I don't know how you could lose that game.
And it wasn't even a Zacian in hand for Jeremy. There is nothing. It's rare candy, energy. Top deck's the Ralts. But at this point, there are like 6 different ways this thing can get knocked out. Scream Tail, Cresselia, Boss. We are just going to see nothing happen. But we already see Ultra Ball and Gardevoir EX in hand. So
now, Scream Tail was prized for Caleb, all right? So maybe picking off that Ralts could be a little difficult. Does require 4 energies in the discard pile. We are only seeing 1 energy. So even attacking with Gardevoir EX is not guaranteed at all. But Caleb will see a lot of cards this turn.
Let's decide to just keep the energy in hand, not putting it down onto anything. Caleb does know that Scream Tail is unavailable, so just deciding I want to refine away these energy cards. So with the Cresselia, you do need to have technically 3 energies, since you can evolve this active into the EX and then embrace onto it and then retreat those energies off. So it will be just the last refinement, and finds Research, and that's honestly just a better card to play because, yeah, I mean, you lose some resources, but you're not giving Jeremy a good hand. You know there's probably nothing going on there.
Yeah, Caleb very purposely probably not playing the Artisan down, not playing the Ionos, right? Gets that Research, and that way you know you're not helping your opponent. I feel like if it came to it, Caleb might have ended up using the Iono just because, like, if you're not attacking this turn, that advantage that you're building is slowly whittling away. All of a sudden, Jeremy's able to Mirage Step and then equals your setup. So Caleb really needs to take advantage of this, and I mean, luckily he found the research, right? So he doesn't need to play Iono to improve Jeremy's hand.
It's kind of tough. There's only one Psychic Energy in the discard pile, and attaching won't get you there. So you'll need to find some other way to get more energy. And I mean, yeah, you discard this hand, but it looks like this Ralts might not go down. But even just taking the knockout on Cresselia, going up to 2 prizes, it's not terrible. I think really the debate here is what do you want to do with this last bench slot? Do you even want to put anything down? One thing that I like to do in this matchup is play with 4 bench Pokemon. Yep. That way you play around Avery, and it's not going to hurt you as much.
You play around Avery, you play around Collapse Stadium, and you give yourself the versatility, right? Okay, I have the opening for Cresselia, that's the one I go for. I have the opening for Screamtail, that's the one I go for.
Yeah. Plenty of choices. An excellent start for Caleb. You see how important Mirage Step is. It just guarantees you're going to have a super strong turn 3. Does find the Shining Arcana. Now the choice here is how do you want to evolve and play this down? And yeah, Caleb is just content to say, look, I'm going to play defensive. I'm going to put this Manaphy in play. It's going to take away your Screamtail option. And yeah, I'm just going to take the prize lead against you. Sure, you could maybe Mirage Step next turn, but I don't even know if you have that potentially in hand.
I really like the Manaphy because on paper, the KO on the Cresselia is very realistic. Therefore, you only need to protect from Screamtail, not Cresselia. Cresselia is going to be much difficult, but no energy for Caleb.
Big Arcana finds the energy. Wow.
So close.
I mean, you have to think, like, you're going to see 9 cards there, right? Surely you find an energy, but
you only found one, right? You
that's all you need.
would expect to find more than one, but good enough.
And there's no Mirage Step in this hand, so you have to evolve into Refinement, but that means your opponent's going to take 3 prizes before you can do anything, most likely. Oh, and this is, oh, come on.
Artisan found, but can Jeremy even retreat? He can, right? So, but what do you even retreat into? Jeremy decides to scoop. I think that's a smart scoop, right? Like, you basically have almost a full time to just play out the next 2 games.
Even at that, I have a memory. So I played this like at NAIC in 2023. I played this mirror match, and it was a 40-minute game 1. I mean, we see there's 5 minutes off the clock, but look, this is one of the matches that when I was playing in Japan, this is a match that you go to 25 minutes in time.
Yeah,
this is a 25-minute match in time, and you're never. Look, I've won some crazy comeback games with Gardevoir. It's so unlikely in best of 3. You just scoop your cards up, you play out game number 2. Smart choice there from Jeremy. I've got to respect.
Now, 5 minutes off the clock, 5 turns total played. However, Jeremy's turns were very short. So in a regular game where both players are setting up, both players are preparing for what their opponent can do and getting ready their strategy, then definitely, 1.5, 2 minute turns for each player. All of a sudden, game 1's taking those 40 minutes that you mentioned.
Tough situation. Got to be aware for you. Got to be prepared to see what's coming up next. So Jeremy will be able to go first. I think we sort of discussed it, but it kind of all just revolves around Mirage Step, right?
Yeah.
Getting that advantage up. But I mean, on paper, you'd think, okay, well, if both players are going to Mirage Step, if both players are going to put Curlias in play, surely the first person who takes the first knockout is favored. Pablo, there are times that's true, but how can it sort of not be the case if you're going behind in this matchup?
I mean, it's difficult to say. There's, both decks have basically the same options, right? So you know what you can do and you know exactly what your opponent can do. We don't know if they're playing the same 60 cards, but you just need to make sure you're one step ahead and you're putting yourself in your opponent's shoes, basically.
Keep emphasizing it a lot. The prize cards, big here for both players. So be curious to see what players both have options for. It will be just the start of the Mew here. I do see a few of those Gardevoirs in the prizes, as well as that Super Rod at the top, and Caleb not having access to the Jirachi.
Yeah, so both players could have very impactful prizes here, and now we see a very different start for Jeremy, but is holding 2 Kirlias, I think, so that could be very problematic for the Mirage Step.
And Mew is a great starter, but it's only a good starter if you're able to find 2 Psychic Energy back-to-back, because you need the 1 to pivot and you need the 1 to attack. Now, there is 1 in the hand, but like you said, 2 Kirlia, and I'm not sure there's much else going on. Really looking to find something like the Battle VIP Pass, and we see through this deck search both players choosing to run that in their Gardevoir EX decks.
Jeremy will really, really need an Iono here to be able to get a full setup does have that energy. I couldn't quite tell what else was in the hand other than the Curious, but being very thorough as well, making sure he takes note of the prices, right? Whether you have a good or bad hand, having that extra piece of information on your prize cards can help you make decisions later down the line.
So first thorough deck search, we'll see that one of each of those Gardevoirs are unavailable, the Gardevoir EX and Shining Arcana. But the choice should be pretty obvious. Ralts will come down. And, I mean, look, technically all you need is one Ralts down when you're going to Mirage Step, but when it comes to the rest of this hand, oh my, has to play the Zacian down. Pablo, I don't know if this ability of Roar of the Sword is worth it. Even if you can get the Mirage Step up, you've got to question, what do I do from here with this 2-prize liability in play?
That, and also I did see Jeremy's holding a Professor's Research in his hand, but one Super Odd is prized. So if those Kirlias hit the discard pile, finding that one of Super Odd, even if he had both available, it would still be pretty difficult. So Jeremy against the ropes right here, against his opponent's Battle VIP pass start.
Good start. I actually don't know if Caleb is holding on to much else that's super strong here. Yeah, just a lot of Gardevoirs and Arcana. I mean, yeah, you have Rare Candy in your hand, but I can at minimum
no
get
energies,
down. Yeah,
right?
Look, I think with this hand, if you had energy, maybe it's correct to see your opponent start and say, you know what, I can forego the Mirage Step. I can put myself into Mew and then maybe let myself get a little bit better of a setup since I have Rare Candy Gardevoir. But I mean, how do you navigate this turnaround?
So is this why, Ethan? Is this why Gardevoir just doesn't seem to quite get past those big wins? Like, I mean, it has a regional win, of course, yeah, in Brisbane, but that's like a single win when it's been deemed the best deck in the format over and over. Yeah, we've seen 4 starting hands. 3 of them sucked. Like, how is this the best deck in the format? Or is it the best deck in the format?
I'm invoking my right to not speak against Gardevoir at this time. So, look, these players are 5-0 for a reason, Pablo. So
oh, absolutely.
We'll see them play it out.
The deck is fantastic. It's just the amount of bad starts that you end up getting with the deck. It even gets to a frustrating point.
It does. It's part of variance, right, in Pokemon, and every deck has that, but it is true. We've seen 4 starting hands, and 50% of them have not been up to par. Now, Caleb will still have options to do this turn, and, I mean, your start is pretty bad, but, I mean, your opponent put a gift on their bench for you, essentially, in that Zacian V, and, I mean, it can't attack this turn. It'll be able to attack next turn. But how do you want to play this hand out for Jeremy? I think pretty much just guaranteed foregoing the Mirage Step, and I think you probably just play this Manaphy down and sort of let it rip. We will see it now currently hit the discard pile, and that's going to hurt even more because Jeremy has one of those Super Rod in the top 2 of his prize cards.
Yeah, but does find that Super Rod right here, though. Interesting. Now, did lose the Screamtail as well, but can get it back. So you have to imagine, though, I mean, Caleb must be playing a high count of Iono. So if you don't play the Super Rod right now, it could be a little difficult finding it again. But I don't think you even want to play it right now.
No, did find Fog Crystal, though, off of this Refinement. Does still have access to Mysterious Tail as well, so just wanted to maximize the ability to just find as many searching cards as possible. It will actually just be the Psychic Energy, so not sure. I think you're always going to want another Ralts down into play, right, with how this is going, but maybe just prioritizing getting that attachment down. The nice thing about attaching is you can Roar of the Sword and guarantee that at least Zacian can attack next turn, but, I mean, Zacian's just not a great attacker when you're trying to trade back and forth 1-1. And yeah, there's no Ralts here off this Mysterious Tail. No way to search it out. Battle Pass is long gone over its expiration date. That concert was days ago. You can't go any more to that.
And was there a Rare Candy found as well, I believe?
There was, but I mean, look, there's Ultra Ball in the hand, but you really want to use that next turn to find yourself a Gardevoir EX, and I don't even know if there's great pieces to this card. I mean, the Psychic, of course, that can hit the discard pile, but what do you get rid of? The Iono, the Jirachi that you want as a defensive option? It's just not great options, and is now going to have to not only play that Ultra Ball, but not going to be able to use anything beneficial off the Mysterious Tail, opting to get the Battle VIP pass to have that as a discarding option. And we're just going to actually see the energy kept, valuing, I guess, Roar of the Sword in combination. Pablo, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you already committed the Zacian to the field. If the Zacian takes 2 prizes, it's worth it, right?
Sure.
Like it paid itself off, if you will. So might as well be aggressive with that. you really don't have many other options. And your opponent did have an underwhelming turn 2,
Sure.
or turn 1 rather. So, I mean, there's no guarantee that that will be the case again, but it's a calculated risk. And I think Caleb has all 4 Gardevoirs in his hand now. So it has 3 of the 4.
So we did see a Shining Arcana into a Psychic Energy. I think what I would like to see here is you just put that on the Scream Tail, and then you just sort of, you can just like poke this Mew, and it's sort of back and forth, but by putting the energy into play at minimum, it means you have the guaranteed pivot for next turn. I guess like that won't be the play instead, though. So
yeah, I mean you can keep it, right?
I mean it's not a
the
bad
only
card,
energy
yeah.
you have, so
sure.
you can just attach it afterwards. The 30 damage poke on the Mew is pretty good, but then it also, I mean, well, there's no space for Cresselia yet, so I guess it's fine. But it could come into play later, right? And you know, the one thing you know is that your opponent's going to be aggressive, so maybe valuing just getting that energy into discard pile and letting go of that Scream Tail.
Yeah, I'm more thinking about it here. I think keeping the energy is fine because what it does is it gives you an out that if you draw into Radiant Greninja, you give yourself the ability to conceal cards that away and draw some more. So actually just going to be the discarding there, finding another Psychic Energy for the troubles, and wow, this is now a big door opened for Jeremy. With the Shining Arcana evolved, it means there's only one Pokemon next turn that can evolve into Gardevoir EX, and while the bench is full, Boss's Orders is still a card that can take this knockout, eliminate Kirlia out of play, and then what attacker do you have next turn? I mean, reversal is an option, but if Zacian's attacking, it's not enough to take the knockout.
It's not even enough. So yeah, that Zacian and seems like it will end up paying off for Jeremy. I mean, sure, you would love to have Cresselia or Screamtail right now to eliminate the Kirlia on the bench, but this is as good as it gets for Jeremy after that awful starting hand.
And Jeremy has the Boss's Orders in hand already. What I think is just the one copy in deck, has it, can bring up this Kirlia, and I mean, sure, you could have the potential to take an attack, but with as limited draw that's available for Caleb, I mean, Jeremy knows the hand is poor. There was no supporter played last turn, no real explosive setup. You're about to swing the pace right back into play when 2 turns ago we were saying this is terrible for Jeremy setting up to put this Zacian into play. It's paying its dividends. It's going to be able to attack. Maybe withstand.
Another Mysterious Tail for a Battle VIP pass. That is a little unlucky. Now, the good thing for Jeremy is that he doesn't have access to Gardevoir EX, but he doesn't need it, thanks to Zacian's ability. So, Boss onto the Kirlia. I mean, honestly, with the time left, with how both players know this matchup and how lengthy it is, we might honestly see Caleb concede, and then we get a full Game 3, hopefully to both players' best potential ability. Debating. There it is.
Yeah, so Boss's Orders up. It is interesting to note when you're playing these aggressive options, it could come back to bite you later in the game if Caleb, for some reason, is able to rally back. But this will be a big turn. It looks like did find the Iono off the top of the deck. So that would have been a card you really wanted to find last turn to get some more Ralts into play. So it is going to be the Shining Arcana first. And yeah, just like you said, Caleb saying, I'm not winning this game. Let's go into a game number 3. We've got 30 minutes. It's like we're playing best of 1.
Yeah, and it's like you have you got the Iono, right? You play it, and I feel like this is something that many players would do, right? Yes, I got an Iono, and then you get to continue playing. That doesn't mean you're going to win. That just means it takes more time for your opponent to win. So knowing when to scoop up your cards, knowing when to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have an advantage now. I get to choose to go first. As long as my hand is playable and it doesn't do Gardevoir things, I'm good to go.
That I take offense to that.
I'm going to keep throwing shade to Gardevoir after seeing 3 really sucky hands.
It's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like.
I love Gardevoir. I've played Gardevoir so much. And historically, like the different Gardevoir cards, I love them. All right? But it's just these starts, man.
It's not doing the deck justice.
We just saw the replay. The replay was the scoop, right? That was the highlight of game 2. The quick scoop.
Guys, what happened that match? Just pick this cards. We're going to game 3. All right.
Now,
I just want to see a game, Paulo. We've talked about so much of the intricacies of using these attackers back and forth, setting the board up. Let's just see it.
Yeah.
Let's just see a good game. Come on.
I want to go back to that Boss's Orders. Yeah, something very important that you mentioned is, yes, Jeremy got an advantage by doing that. However, that's one less resource he has for later down the line, right? So obviously it didn't matter here, but that is something that sometimes you can lose a game by being overly aggressive, right, with your resources and not spending them exactly where you need it to be, just because it was so tempting to do that, and then you open up a door for your opponent.
All right, we keep mentioning it. The prize cards are big. No Curlias, no Gardevoirs, not... okay.
Double Ralts.
And Rod again.
You can play around. If he pulls off the Mirage Step, double Ralts priced is fine. It's not great, right? In the lead up and as players start taking KOs, yeah, the Super Art is available early, so that's good. But it can hurt if you don't have a stellar setup, which it's pretty good for Jeremy, and it's only gonna get better with a mulligan from Caleb.
Now, there is a weird downside to taking mulligans that while you are getting more cards, you could draw into those refinement Curlias. So. Okay, listen, the more we're like kind of adding the list, the more and more things that can go wrong with Gardevoir as we get through, but...
It's still a fantastic deck, don't get me wrong. I love Gardevoir, I love the Pokemon, I love the card. Like, I would even say I get emotionally attached with the cards that I do well with, and so Gardevoir GX, yeah, one of my favorite cards
Top
ever.
8 in
one
Worlds
of my
with it, yeah.
favorite Pokemon ever, so I love Gardevoir. It's just this version of Gardevoir is just like, oh my gosh. It reminds me of Greninja, and I love Greninja as well.
All right, maybe we don't agree on Greninja necessarily. But all right, let's take a look at the prize cards here. And we do see the Screamtail in the prizes again, but a Super Rod to each other. So pretty even prize cards in terms of severity. So I think we're going to have a good game here as Caleb starts things out with a Battle VIP pass. A Mew start, a Ditto for both players. Staring each other back and forth. So Caleb's going to check the deck through, see that all those Curlios are there, see that at least a majority of the Ralts are there, and as long as there's some energy cards, as long as there's some level balls, we'll be seeing some setups from Caleb and hopefully Jeremy and having a good game number 3.
Now, how important would you say Mew is to Gardevoir? Because if he was the absolute best starter in the world, I feel like we would see a higher count than 1. So how would you rate Mew in terms of importance in this deck?
If I'm going to put it on a 5-star scale, I think I'm going to give it 3 stars, 3.5 stars. It's great. Mysterious Tail finds so many of your searching cards, but it's not integral to the deck. We've seen some lists start cutting Mew, playing other cards for it. What it's here to do is to increase your consistency early on, right? We're here talking about having poor starts, right? That's why Mew is in the deck, and playing it at 1 count is okay because almost every card in your deck searches it out. Fog Crystal, Level Ball, Battle Pass, and every Pokemon in your deck, besides Zacian, has 1 retreat, so you can easily pivot into it. So we'll see what these 6 cards look like off of the Mysterious Tail. And there is a Level Ball. So, I mean, this gives Caleb 2 different options here with his hand. Do you want to go for the 4 Ralts set up, get those all down, or do you want to give yourself an option to find Mirage Step next turn? I think seeing if Caleb has an energy attachment here will make me sort of realize what route he wants to go. And the fact that he's shuffling the deck means that he also values Mirage Step in this situation. Yeah,
he's holding 1 energy. He doesn't have the follow-up energy, but he is holding, I believe, 2 Professor's Research, if my eyes are not failing me. Now, he did have 1 Ralts prize, so we do have to keep that in mind. And wow, there's actually a Curlia in Caleb's hand as well, so the Mirage Step is not going to be as perfect as he would like it to be.
At least getting all of them into play. It's not the end of the world. It's still fine, but it is something to note, especially when you do have some of those Ralts prized. There are more resources that you're going to have unavailable. Jeremy starting things off with a Level Ball. Had to see some of the rest of the hand. I think there's Iono, some other pieces available. It does, of course, still have access to Mysterious Tail, but I think one thing that, as I've sort of watched people play, as I've analyzed a lot of games, Mysterious Tail is a great ability. It finds these trainers, but the one thing that's so important about it is when in your turn you use it to maximize its effectiveness.
Indeed, the timing of any card really, right? Like sometimes you want to thin before you Mysterious Tail. Sometimes you want to Mysterious Tail first before you start drawing cards with Refinement. All of that, all of those intricacies are definitely something that both of these 5-0 players are probably very good at.
So nothing too sour in terms of prizes, again, for both these players. Ralts will be the choice. And I think for Jeremy, it's going to be how do you want to navigate this turn? Your opponent didn't really do much, but again, all they really need to do is Mirage Step on the following turn. They need the Level Ball, which they already have in hand,
which you know they already
and an
have,
energy. So is there a route where you do sort of play this Iono aggressively to try to disrupt your hand out? Or do you sort of prioritize what you're doing a little bit more in this situation? That's the big question here for Jeremy.
I think knowing you go second, knowing your opponent is so close to a Mirage Step, I think you have to plan from playing behind the whole time, right? And being behind as Gardevoir is not necessarily a bad thing. It means you have counter catcher. It means you have reversal energy activated. It means you can be the one to go after the Gardevoir EX first. But yeah, this concealed cards and also locking up the bench, right? If you Mirage Step plus Recurlias, no more room for Ralts either.
And that's the riskiest part, is if you put the energy, or rather if you put only one Ralts into play, you play something like Iono and you draw into your Curlias, you have no way to at least put them into play down. And it is just going to be the Iono. And with no value off that concealed cards, it really makes me wonder that you already have the Iono, you have 4 Battle Pass in your deck plus Mew. Do you really need to see the concealed cards that turn? We'll see if it comes back to bite Jeremy. These are a big 6 cards. And look at that, an excellent 6 cards there for Caleb. Mirage Step, ding, 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 it's online next turn.
And have one Curly in hand, which is now at the bottom of the deck. So Caleb in a fantastic position after that Iono. Now we're going to see the Mysterious Tail.
Oh, this is huge. This needs to find something like Battle VIP Pass or Search. It finds the Fog Crystal, which is good enough to start out, but with how this hand is looking for Jeremy, there needs to be a few more pieces. I think the energy is what's missing here to get things going next turn with a Mirage Step. And at that, with this Ralts coming down into play, if it is the choice, you now are not going to get full effectiveness off of this Mirage Step. You'll need to manually evolve one of these Ralts into Curlia as well.
Indeed. But you can't risk it, right? You can't risk your opponent going Rare Candy, Gardevoir EX, Screamtail, bopping up your only Ralt. So, yeah, that Greninja with diminishing returns, right? As you mentioned. And with 2 Ralts prize, you really need to make the most out of your starting hand as much as possible.
And a smart choice there for Caleb. Knows some of the cards on the bottom of the deck, so instead of playing Level Ball first to shuffle it out, we'll look at these first 6 cards and see the options. Rare Candy is a great card to find right there because it allows you to, next turn, Candy into the Shining Arcana. You could even do it this turn if you want to, too. However, it is sort of one of those things where... So what I would actually like to see here is you Candy into the Arcana and you don't use the ability. You don't want to risk drawing into those Curlias, but you know that something like Iono next turn could disrupt your setup and not let you do that.
All right, I'm going to play devil's advocate there and say you should Shining Arcana. Why? Like, because how, well, okay, so, like, the chances, yeah, just speaking probability-wise.
Sure.
Right? Like, you have 3 Curlias that you don't want to find in your, 35-ish card deck. The chance of you finding one are much lower than you not finding one, right? So it depends on how strong the rest of your hand is. If you have a pretty weak hand, I feel I would risk it. Have one less Curlia in exchange for getting closer to a follow-up Iono afterwards. But, I mean, with triple Curlia, I guess you don't need to take that. Yeah, okay, you're all right. As I verbalized it, I guess the risk is not worth it.
And it actually was better to not play the Rare Candy because now you saved that there. So Caleb made the better play between both of us and chose to not do that at all. So maybe there's a reason he's here at 5-0 with us and we're back at the desk commentating through. But these are big cards for Jeremy. Really would have liked to find Fog Crystal there. You find the Fog Crystal, you can then at least get yourself the attachment to this bench Ralts. You then play Level Ball, and we'll have to see how he makes his adjustment here. Are we just going to see this evolve straight into the Curlia? Jeremy foregoing the Mirage Step, which, okay, now if you're going first and you can forego this, it's not terrible if you can push your aggression with the turn 2 knockout and then your opponent steps and you can take 2 prizes before them. However, you're pretty much saying that there's a high chance you're not going to take a prize this turn. So not only are you going to be down resource-wise by wasting all these Ralts in play, it's going to be more things you need to get back with Rod, but your opponent's also going to have the prize lead against you as well.
Now, you cannot forgo Mirage Step when you prize 2 Ralts. Like, you're not winning a Gardevoir mirror with 2 Gardevoir lines versus their 4. It's almost impossible. So, now...
Is there...
I don't think Mirage Step is there. It's in there.
There is the energy attachment, and there is an Iono, but I think it's just going to come down to that. All the abilities have been used.
Yeah.
We're just going to play Iono, spin the wheel, and we are in hot water.
No, but Avery was played.
Oh, that's true. He played Avery.
Yeah.
So
big whiff there by Jeremy. Really unfortunate prizes. That Mew really not pulling through for Jeremy, and now we're going to see Caleb just do whatever he wants. Yeah, 6 extra cards, potentially more with Shining Arcana each turn. That's really, really bad for Jeremy.
And I mean, Screamtail's in the prizes, but there's going to definitely be enough energy, especially if this active Kirlia evolves into Gardevoir EX. As long as there's 3 energy, which I think we're almost at that point right now, there can be a knockout onto this Kirlia. Onto this Kirlia.
Wow. Yeah, now, there's no Cresselia in hand yet. There's one Ultra Ball.
That's true.
Which means Caleb either could search for Gardevoir EX or Cresselia. Cannot hit both. Does find an Iono, so that could give him the extra search. I feel like you commit to the Gardevoir EX here. You cannot commit to the Cresselia hoping to draw the Gardevoir. You have so many more outs to Cresselia with the Artisan, with the Fog Crystals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what Level Ball grabs here. I think I would have just liked to see it be fodder for the Ultra Ball. It seemed like there were a lot of pieces in hand that you don't necessarily want to discard. At minimum, you could at least grab this Ralts and put it onto the bottom of your deck so you don't draw into it off Iono. But, I mean, yeah, this hand's kind of tough. You just discarded the rare candy. You don't want to really get rid of another one of those. Yeah. Boss is a great resource. Iono is so important.
I would say Greninja is definitely one of the
So I was thinking
right?
with this, you could Ultra Ball away the Greninja and the Level Ball, but it will be a harder choice now for Caleb.
I mean, I feel like you're limited on bench space, right? So either Greninja, either Manaphy or Jirachi would be one of the choices, whichever you fear the most. I feel like I would rather my opponent commit to a Cresselia and spread their energies and maybe run out of an attack than protect from Screamtail, which is like very all-in-ish in all the resources on that Pokemon. So if I had to choose, I would get rid of the Jirachi and just protect against the Screamtail.
So we're actually going to see this active evolve into Shining Arcana.
There's the Gardevoir EX.
That's a huge 2 cards. Finds the Gardevoir and Ultra Ball already in the hand. Means that as long as there's 2 energy in the discard pile, this Gardevoir EX can power up some more Pokemon. And no, we're actually just going to see this evolve. Are we going to see Boss's Orders get played? It looks like it does have that as an option, but no, instead just going to attack after the Mew, maybe understanding that my opponent's best setup is to disrupt, but I'm not necessarily sure that I agree with that 100%.
Is there maybe no Cresselia?
Oh, is there? Oh, maybe there's no Cresselia in the list. Oh, I think that's what it is.
Because the Screamtail is priced.
I think I remember there was no Cresselia.
There is no Cresselia,
oh, okay. That makes sense then.
Yeah.
So we were coming up with an option
a little
that didn't exist.
eager.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that if I saw right, Caleb did have Boss in the hand before. It is one of those opportunities where you got to kind of be careful in this mirror match of how much you push when you don't necessarily need to. Because you, with only playing 1 Boss in the deck and nothing like Palpad, you would lose your 1 Gusting account. So I think Caleb is going to say, look, listen, my board is better than yours. You already burnt an Avery last turn. I think that if I just take the prize lead, I can continuously power my board up. No matter what you throw at me, whether it's Arcana, whether it's some reversal KOs, I'm going to have the stability in terms of draw. I'm going to disrupt you every turn, and you're not going to be able to come back.
That is, I think, the perfect reasoning. And, yeah, just because you can play a card doesn't mean you have to, right? This over-eagerness that we've mentioned before. I mean, obviously, Jeremy's board is really not great. I feel like if you go after the Ralts, then you guarantee no Mirage Step, and your opponent has 1 Kirlia, and that's going to be really hard for them to make a comeback. But then you can never go Boss KO their Gardevoir EX. Right, because you are ahead, and therefore your counter catchers are now as useful as Battle VIP Pass for the rest of the game. So, very, very good decision there for Caleb. And then maybe maybe Jeremy gets back into the match is back and forth, and then you're down to 2 prizes, and you go Boss KO the Gardevoir EX to finish things off.
This hand is tough. There's just energy, Pokemon, not really anything going on at all. I mean, you can evolve this into the Curly, but we keep saying it. 2 Ralts being prized. It feels like the only way to set your board up to even have a chance at how strong Caleb's is to Mirage Step. But you do that, you're now down 2 prizes. So really, if you're Jeremy, you're slowly running out of options. The clock is ticking here.
Yeah, Caleb's board almost feels like cheating, right? There's 1 Gardevoir, 2 Gardevoir, 3. There's a Kirlia. And then there's this even Ralts. That's the power of Mirage Step. And, yeah, that's 5 Gardevoir potential lines versus 2. That's not a fair battle.
It's not fair.
No.
Look, that's how it goes back and forth.
That's 4 out of 6 bad initial hands. Right. Caleb's starting hands have been a good 2 out of 3 times. Jeremy's starting hands have been bad all 3 games. He managed to recover in the second game. But
listen, when I play my Gardevoir deck that I built,
Gardevoir. So your Gardevoir is special, Ethan. Okay.
Well, these players are piloting their lists, and it's down to this. Game 3 between both players. Can they put together the pieces needed? And it looks like we're going to just see the reversal energy on the active, signaling towards Shining Arcana evolving and taking a knockout. But
That Kirlia did just evolve, though. That was the Ralts that was in play, so...
Oh, that's true.
I mean, Jeremy does have a play where he can use Cresselia now, right? There's a Gardevoir EX hitting the field. There's Cresselia, can retreat. The attachments could be conserved, right? That reversal energy, we could just see Gardevoir attach to the Kirlia, and then we see the retreat. But still, it's 5 Gardevoirs versus 2. 5 potential Gardevoirs versus 2. That's never a good fight.
The Collapse Stadium did force Caleb to get rid of Manaphy, so can take a knockout with the Scream Tail and get rid of a few less resources. But regardless, one of these Pokemon, most likely that Kirlia, will be going down. The draw party isn't over yet. Kirlia can use the refinement, evolve into more. But, I mean, you could take this knockout with the Scream Tail, but I guess the fact that Caleb has the Scream Tail in the top prizes means that, really, this Kirlia could be safe on the bench when in a lot of other instances you have one more of those Pokemon like Cresselia. This is a completely different game.
Indeed, and I think one of the very cool things to highlight here is how Jeremy, despite the bad start, despite the bad pricings, is making the best out of the situation, right? It is game 3. That's like if you lose this one, you're completely out. But, I mean, of the round, of course. But he's making the best possible from this really bad start, and we're tied in prizes.
Now, it will be the Cresselia being used. How do you feel about that versus the Scream Tail this turn?
I definitely would have preferred the Scream Tail, as we talked before, right? Scream Tail is less all-inish. Now there's a pretty much useless energy on the Scream Tail, right? Because Scream Tail works thanks to damage counters on it. And Jeremy would have only needed to commit 2 energies to a Scream Tail to achieve the same thing instead of spreading those energies out.
So it looks like both players might go for a different strategy this game. Jeremy, with the ability to target down these bench Pokemon, like the Kirlias, like the Gardevoirs, that are the main backbone of the Straw Engine, while Caleb having that Scream Tail in the prize cards, even though there's no Manaphy down, unable to capitalize off that Pokemon not being in play. We'll see how this dynamic shifts as both players are going after different attackers.
Now, I guess another important thing to highlight is that maybe using a Cresselia first is pretty good, since the Manaphy did just hit the discard pile, right? So then you know your Cresselia goes down, and then you have the follow-up Scream Tail, whereas if Jeremy had done it the other way around, maybe the Scream Tail gets used, and then the Jirachi hits the field, and then Jeremy's not able to use Cresselia. So, I mean, there's always Super Rod for recovery, right? But it needs to be found.
True indeed. Now, we will see both of these into Shining Arcana Gardevoirs, and drawing these cards, not getting rid of anything in terms of discarding. Caleb has yet to find something like the Super Rod. We have seen lots of those Pokemon hit the discard pile. The Radiant Greninja is still there, so that could be put onto the bench to draw a few more cards in this situation. Collapse Stadium will make that the final bench Pokemon, but does also have the replacement stadium, so Caleb's got plenty of options when it comes to how to play this turn out. But really, with both players still having Super on the prizes, the recovery gets a little bit tricky. It gets a little bit complicated.
Now, Caleb does find the boss again, so now has that option to potentially clear out the Kirlia, clear out the Gardevoir EX. I don't know if there's enough energies to do it. Well, there isn't even any bench space to do it with Sashin, so just goes for a straightforward KO, and that is it.
I keep thinking about the Cresselia before the Scream Tail. I actually think this is okay because now that both of these have evolved, Cresselia can't knock out these Gardevoirs, but Scream Tail has more than enough packing power with that Roaring Scream to deal 160 or even 140 damage, or 120 damage to this active Gardevoir. As both players are sort of in a similar board after this. They'll both have a Radiant Greninja, and they'll both have one of these support Pokemon to draw. From here on out, it comes down to can they find that Super Rod to bring these Pokemon back in to keep developing their board to be strong enough against Iono later on.
Indeed, Super Rod seems to be the key card in this particular game, right? I feel like there's many other games where Super Rod isn't as impactful, but right now, because of the pricing, because of the game, the way the game has developed, Super Rod is going to be key, and as we see that, we hit the Super Rod for Jeremy.
So Choice now. What Pokemon do you want to put back into the deck?
He already put
Oh, he
back
did.
Cresselia and then something else. I could not see what else he put back.
Oh, yeah. There's no ability to put Ralts back into the deck because they're still
They're
prized.
still hiding in the prizes, yeah.
And I think the last rod, or maybe the rod was taken there for Jeremy off of the last prize card. So
It might have been the rod, yeah.
So still has access to the refinement. I think the choice now is how do you want to sort of play through this? How do you want to navigate your board so that you can have a big enough setup? Now, this is a little bit risky here to go for this play, evolving into Shining Arcana, but it's all about giving yourself options, right? That's what this Gardevoir deck is so great about. Options, attacking options, setup options. Why is this risky here to evolve into the Shining Arcana instead of maybe keeping that as a Curlia?
Because if Caleb was able to respond by knocking out the Gardevoir EX, then there's no more possibility to power anything else up, right? Now, we could see Jeremy like potentially take a knockout on his opponent's Gardevoir EX through the use of Counter Catcher and the Reversal Energy as he is behind, right? And then what you can do is, well, and then you're fine, right? If they knock out their Gardevoir EX, that's okay because you already have your attacker ready to go for the next turn. If the Gardevoir gets taken down, then your Gardevoir EX survived and you're fine, right? For at least one more turn. As we see the Counter Catcher onto the Greninja, so it seems like Screamtail will be the play. Combined with an Iono, pretty powerful play.
Yeah, of course, Psychic Embrace only working on those Psychic-type Pokemon. So Greninja will need to find a manual energy, which Caleb does find off of these 4 cards. Yeah, but this is a little bit of a risky spot now. I mean, you're kind of taking the risk here if you're Jeremy. You haven't seen Screamtail at the board. Is Manaphy a card that you want to have down? I feel like this last bench slot, it's kind of like his own Collapse Stadium is sort of coming back to bite him a little bit because I think he would very much appreciate having that in play as a protective option in this situation.
Certainly, I'm sure he would love to, but I think Jeremy's been so far behind for the most part. He's priced horribly, so he has to take risks, right? This is how he's trying to get back into the game, by taking risks. He has to bank on the fact that there's no Screamtail coming from his opponent to snipe his Gardevoir or snipe his Cresselia or whatever Caleb chose. And yeah, I mean, knocking out your opponent's Gardevoir here, I feel like I would have loved this play a little bit later, right?
Yeah.
When the energy count is lower, when your opponent has exhausted one Super Rod, it's still pretty good. That Iono is pretty strong, and you're limiting your opponent to just 2 extra cards off of Gardevoir guaranteed. If they have the energy, they have to use it to retreat, so maybe they don't use Gardevoir, but...
So this is an interesting choice. I feel like I would have just taken the knockout on the Gardevoir that has all the energy, but is instead going to go after the clean one. I mean, it's one of these weird situations where even something like a teleportation burst can now take the knockout onto this active, and you could even throw this Greninja up, which you would be okay having knocked out the following turn.
Indeed. So this Gardevoir mirror match, I'm sure you would agree, is all about like keeping your Gardevoirs alive as long as possible, giving your flexibility to attack with different things, whilst taking down your opponent's Gardevoirs. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and it all revolves around this card right here. The Super Rod getting played. This can recover at least one of the refinements. Is even thinking about using the slot to bring Zacian back, valuing that as the final attacker. Now, usually Reversal Gardevoir is good enough, but Caleb understands, listen, I'm probably going to have the prize lead the rest of this game. Zacian needs to be my finisher to take that final knockout onto Gardevoir EX.
Indeed. We talked about how important that was in the beginning of the game, not playing that boss's orders, right? And this is where it will come into play. That I'm sure Caleb is eyeing up to close out this game. Gonna knock out this Screamtail. I can basically look at it and it goes down. But how do I take my last 2 prizes? I need to go boss KO with Gardevoir. And maybe Jeremy's thinking about that, and that's why he's not freeing up those energies from the Gardevoir, right? Zacian does need 9 energies to 1 KO a clean Gardevoir EX, and that's why keeping the energy spread out and in play means your Gardevoir EX is potentially safe.
Yeah, it's sort of a back and forth this position. We will go ahead and see the Shining Arcana before the Iono, and does find boss's orders. Now let's see how many energy are available in this card pile. It looks like there are 5 in there. So with the Radiant Greninja, if you were able to attach to the Shining Arcana and then embrace 5 times onto it, you would get there, but you need to commit your attachment to this Greninja to pivot out of the active.
Yeah, that energy definitely has to go into the active. There's no other possible play here. You cannot afford a turn where you don't attack.
And this is really the choice. That was going to be a rough Ultra Ball. Caleb
Yeah.
was really considering playing that to get Curlia out into this position. But, wow, great 4 cards there. Finds Level Ball. That can get the Curlia in play. And if Caleb wants to, could even put Artisan into play, but actually didn't recover any of those Ralts.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't even need to come down to this position.
Yeah, could get Jirachi with the Artisan. And that's what he's eyeing up to protect against that Cresselia. And I think it makes sense, right? You knock out the Screamtail, your opponent has one threat, which is a Cresselia, and that's exactly what you protect against.
So looking through the rest of the deck, what options are still available? We know that the second Super Rod is in Caleb's bottom prizes, so I think that will be the prize that's taken this turn.
Very likely.
And now could draw some more cards with Curlia, and more important, have that as a potential draw option the following turn as well.
An extra refinement, so things are looking pretty good for Caleb now. One thing I'm a little bit worried about is the time, right? This game has been very back and forth. Both players have only taken 2 prize cards. There's 5 minutes left on the clock, but these turns are lengthy and not out of any wrongdoing. It's just there's a lot of actions to be made with every single Gardevoir card, basically.
So this Gardevoir does come up into the active. Just like you said, looking at the Screamtail will take a knockout onto it. Rain Wave, more than enough. As Caleb actually, not the Super Rod being taken. So
not the Super Rod,
just
not
right
the Screamtail.
there. Not the Screamtail or Super Rod. So some pretty detrimental prizes up here for Caleb. Now, Jeremy's thinking about what Pokemon to bring up. I think if you're going to use the Cresselia, you should probably just bring this Gardevoir EX into the active spot. You really don't want to have energy ons to it. You want to have it freed up, and it gives you the 320 damage to put on while resetting those energies.
Yeah,
and we'll just be the Cresselia going up right now.
Now, I mean, is there a world where Jeremy forgets about the Jirachi and tries to attack with Cresselia? I have to admit, like when Jirachi just came out, I was like, yeah, it stopped Sableye, and then I just forgot it stopped Cresselia. So, I mean, it can happen, yeah, and so much at stake. I know we're at the highest level here, but mistakes do happen, and these sort of things can happen to anyone. Pros, new players, literally anyone.
I think Cresselia, even just as a pivoter, is fine. You can always just put 20 damage on it, and it's never really going to cost you as a liability. So
True.
That could be the option. Let's take a look at his hand for Jeremy. Has the counter catcher in hand, and with 6 energy in the discard pile, this could target down Gardevoir EX. Is now the time, Pablo, to go after this?
I mean, will there ever be a better time, right? You're about to Iono your opponent down to 3 cards. You take down their Gardevoir EX. The Gardevoir is already powered up, so they will be able to get a return KO, but what happens afterwards? And that's exactly what we're going to see, Ethan. The Gardevoir EX, perfect knockout for Jeremy combined with the Iono. Back-to-back counter catchers, pretty good.
Pretty good indeed. Now, you do, however, leave both of these drawing Pokemon in play. So while you do force your opponent to find another Gardevoir EX, you are allowing them to draw a few more cards. Now, only one available option, and this is where things get sketchy, right? Because on paper, Jeremy's going to take the prize lead and go back, but Caleb can next turn take out this only draw option here in that Shining Arcana Gardevoir, while also not putting another Gardevoir EX into play, not losing him the game. And this is sort of where we get into this back and forth seesaw swing between momentum, advantage in one court, advantage in the other court, as we near the end game of this game number 3.
And now, speaking of extra draw power, the Greninja is available, but it's conditional, right? It has to have an energy from hand discarded. It's not like Gardevoir, it's not like Curlia, where you just get extra cards no matter what. So, pretty big turn here for Jeremy. Gonna go down to 2 prizes, but as you mentioned, Caleb has the possibility to just make sure that Jeremy has no chance at winning the turn afterwards. However, if he chooses to do that, and then Jeremy goes boss KO the Curlia, that could be a pretty big risk for Caleb.
Now, Artisan can get the Ralts. I believe that was actually the prize card taken on the bottom, and also will put the Iono that was originally in Caleb's hand, shuffle that around. There's lots of really good outs. There's still energy cards. That can be a draw. You still have, of course, the knockout is already given in play. Yep. However, the scary factor comes into play that what happens if this Curlia gets knocked out, right? Because next turn, Jeremy will 100% be able to take a prize. That's pretty much a given at this point. However, to take that last prize card, how are you going to navigate that before Caleb can potentially take 2? That Gardevoir EX is most likely not going anywhere.
I think if Jeremy, was able to go boss KO and keep these energies on the Gardevoir, then maybe Caleb might not have enough to push for the Sasha and KO on the Gardevoir EX. And yeah, if we see another attachment onto the active,
that's all you need.
what I just mentioned could be, because like there's 10 basic energies played, right? You retreat with 2, and that means there's 2 left, and you have 8. You're 10 off.
This is actually the perfect 2 cards here for Caleb. Hasn't even used Refinement yet, so can build this hand up even more. The only true draw on Jeremy's side will get discarded after being knocked out at this turn. What are the cards in hand here for Caleb? Oh, wow.
It was Countercatcher, Ultra Ball, and Sasha. So harsh discard here with a Refinement.
I think, honestly, there's kind of a world where you maybe don't even use Refinement, right? I mean, I think, honestly, the Ultra Ball is probably, like, okay to go here at this point because of how thin your deck should be out at this point. But, yeah just deciding to value all the pieces. The prize card taken, it will be that Super Rod. And actions on Jeremy here. Both players are at 2 prizes, but with your attackers not being great, I mean, look, the only thing that can attack besides the Gardevoir EX is this Cresselia, but because of the Jirachi's stellar availability, you can only attack this active, and there's not enough Psychic Pokemon for Moonglow Reverse to take the knockout.
And it's 10 damage off from knocking out the Gardevoir as well. So
true, with Lunar Blast.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy did top deck a Psychic, so he will be able to use that to draw with the Radiant Greninja, or he could use that to have less damage on the Gardevoir. But if he doesn't knock out something else on the bench and frees up those energies, it's going to be rough.
Ooh, not what you want to see there. Did find the Super Rod and Level Ball, but, I mean, what do you even do at this point? Attacking
Screen Tail.
Oh, a Screen Tail, right?
You could Screen Tail, right?
You
Screen Tail the Kirlia, and then you force your opponent to have Rare Candy Gardevoir to do any significant damage, along with the Sashan, along with the Ghosting effect. That's a big ask.
That's true, actually. That is
a really big ask. And we are also in time. I did not. This game has been so back and forth.
Yeah.
We are on time. So I believe Jeremy would be turn 0, right? Pretty sure. So both players have 2 extra turns, including this one, to be able to pull this off. That might have been the perfect 2 cards.
That might have actually been
Jeremy.
the perfect 2.
Absolute perfect 2 cards. It's on Caleb to find the last Rare Candy in his deck. What a game. We finally got a good game,
and
right?
it's not even over, right? It's going to be on Caleb for this last turn to respond. What looked to be 2 cards that didn't give the win right away can set up for the potential to win this over 2 turns. Jeremy, seeing the options, seeing the potential, will get this Scream Tail back, can search it out with the Level Ball. And now, all of a sudden, Caleb is the one in the back position. The final turn for both of these players. We're in time, but we're going to get a conclusion to this final game, that I'm sure of.
We definitely are. What a game. I mean, big props to Jeremy. 2 Ralts being prized, an absolutely horrible start, and yet here he is with a little bit of luck, right? Like drawing that exact combination does require a little bit of luck, but he played to his outs, and he's about to be very close to finishing this game. The energy is being stuck on the Gardevoir, no access to Gardevoir EX or no easy access, and even if you do, that 4th energy, Ethan, that 4th energy that got attached might prevent Caleb from taking a knockout on Jeremy's Gardevoir EX with Sasha.
Yeah, but you can just embrace 5 times under the active, and you're doing enough to damage to knock out the Gardevoir EX.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Never mind. All right, so
it's still going to come down to it.
It's on the Rare Candy. It's on the Rare Candy to be found. That is very correct.
And needs the Gusting card as well. So Rare Candy Gardevoir Gusting card. That's what it's going to come down to.
The Countercatcher is already there, though. That's why just the Rare Candy is the big missing piece. He's going to have his top deck. He's going to have the 2 cards from Shining Arcana.
And even a supporter card, right?
Potentially a supporter card, yeah. So, but it's like that's what it comes down to. The 2 cards from the Shining Arcana need to be as big as the Super Rod plus Level Ball that Jeremy found.
And here we go. Jeremy, roaring scream, taking the knockout onto Kirlia, and it all comes down to this. Does find the reversal energy off the top. That's an extra 2 cards there with concealed cards.
2 cards, yeah. So big draw for Caleb. Now there's going to be at least 4 cards total drawn extra for Caleb to find Rare Candy. That's the big card Caleb needs.
I think what Caleb is just trying to figure out is what can I afford to Ultra Ball. I don't think you need the Super Rod at this point.
Agreed.
I don't think it brings anything out, especially if you're going to Ultra Ball for the Gardevoir EX. You can just pitch those 2 away, find those options. But no, it's just going to be the Refinement first.
Gardevoir and Iono. The Iono is great to see more cards, but you need a combination of cards.
Yeah.
And you have one, you don't want to send that to the bottom. So now he can afford the Ultra Ball, but it's going to come down. 2 cards from Shiny Arcana. Can the rare candy be found, Ethan?
I think maybe Caleb is just doubting whether or not this Gardevoir EX is in deck. Maybe didn't check it, because I feel like if you know that the Gardevoir EX is still there, you just go and you get rid of the Super Rod, right? You're going to want to find that piece. It might as well just get thinned out. So here we go. Ultra Ball being played. Gardevoir EX is there. There's two rare candy.
They were both at the bottom, though, so good shuffle. Would have been better, right, to do it beforehand. Oh, my gosh. This is nerve-wracking.
Wow, wow, wow. So there's about a 1 in 5 chance here with 10 cards or so in deck that you find this rare candy, right? Or no, it's more than that, right? Since you have 2 copies of it. So.
Yeah, and there's
right,
like, I
here
think
we
there's
go.
like 8 cards, and I can see, I think
I
there was
don't
a
think so.
reversal. No.
No!
Reversal and Ultra Ball. There's no way for Caleb to stop Jeremy from taking a prize card with Gardevoir EX.
But Caleb is
there
turn
is.
1 here. So Caleb can play the counter catcher onto Greninja, try and buy himself a turn and play this Iono. I think that's the best effect that he has here. Can also play the Super Rod, it looks like, to get back Curlia to not have to find Gardevoir EX next turn. That could be the best potential option.
That is true. And I guess Sashan is a Pokemon that can survive a hit from Gardevoir EX. It did just hit the discard pile. So I don't know if it's coming back right now.
Wow,
but
this is so intense, Pablo.
there's a Sashan.
I mean, yeah, this Sashan can come back.
This is not how I thought this game was going to go. After, like, we were talking about how big of an advantage Caleb had, and Jeremy pulled all the strings he could. And I think the Screamtail being prized, that was the key resource that Caleb was really missing to really push through his advantage. Jeremy had both resources of Cresselia and Screamtail.
I think the choice here for Caleb is, what do you value more? Do you value the Curlia more here, or do you value... Because in my mind, with this Ultra Ball, you can get rid of the reversal energy, and you can get rid of the Gardevoir EX, put a Gardevoir EX back, and grab Curlia. That way you have more draw at this point, but instead, we'll now have to bank off of finding rare candy Gardevoir again.
I don't understand why he's putting back the Manaphy, though. Is he not planning on taking a knockout this turn?
I think the option may again be to counter catcher up this Greninja, play the Iono, force the Zacian into the active spot, and then say, all right, well, it's on you essentially to find the pivoting option and a way to get it out. So that is going to be what it is.
Yeah, that's fair. That's very fair.
We'll see if the counter catcher gets play. I feel like you have to play the counter catcher on the Greninja.
Yeah.
Or Manaphy too. I feel like probably either or at this point. It doesn't make a difference. And there's the Iono. I don't think was the Manaphy found? No, but there's Boss.
Gardevoir.
So I think it's just going to be a pass. There's no reason to do anything else. There's one card. Oh, is he knocking it out? No, he's passing.
No. Yeah, he's passing.
Turn
2.
Oh, there's nothing in hand. It's Rare Candy Ultra Ball. It's
reversal.
It's reversal. That can retreat into the Gardevoir. No way.
What?
The perfect cards. Jeremy in a nail-biter game in time. Pulling out the win. He could have. It wouldn't have mattered. He just retreats into Screamtail and he knocks out the Ralts. It wouldn't have mattered
That's true. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow. What a match. Jeremy finding the way somehow. That was incredible.
I think that was the top deck too for turn. Had the candy and top decked the way to get Greninja out of the active, retreating the Gardevoir EX, and take the final prize. That was a crazy set, Paulo. I have no words for that.
That was a crazy game 3. The first 2 games, we could have gone without seeing them.
They're not games, no.
Game 3, what just happened? That was, I mean, that definitely, it was very back and forth. Gardevoir, is it the best deck or not? I don't know, but that was quite the match. That's not the level of hype and interesting things you expect in a mirror match. Usually you see a mirror match and you're like, oh gosh, this is going to drag itself. That was exciting Pokemon.
And like you said, I think the key thing there was that Screamtail being prized. If that Screamtail isn't prized, it's a completely different game. Jeremy only has 2 Curlia in play. that option gets eliminated. There's no draw power off the Iono, but Jeremy, with some clutch draws late off the Iono, the first Iono played before, finds Super Rod, level ball off the 2 cards from concealed cards, and then Iono to 1, top decks the reversal to get out of the active with his Greninja, retreat the final turn. An insane game back and forth, but this is all it came down to. Screamtail and Cresselia, the combination. When you're not having your bench disrupt every turn, you can play these back over and over again, take these knockouts, and this was the turn that Caleb really was looking to get something going the following turn after. Wow, what a game, what a set.
Now, Screamtail, like, Iron Hands is pulling through for the future Pokemon, but Screamtail definitely carrying the weight for the ancient Pokemon. Yeah, we all had our hopes on Roaring Moon, but it was actually Screamtail where it was at. Screamtail was the MVP for Jeremy, and it was the sorely missed card for Caleb throughout the whole game.
Was it the top deck?
Oh. Yeah, it was. It was the top deck. The reversal energy top deck. Like, even Jeremy feels like he wasn't sure, like,
do I have it?
Is it actually, like, really? Wow. What a turn of events. And now, look at that boss's orders, yeah? Caleb kept that boss's orders in the beginning. He had the option to take down that Kirlia. We were talking about how important it is to not just play a card when you can. And of course, hindsight is 20/20, right? Like, you don't know how the whole game is going to play out. Only, like, like, I'm not a psychic Pokemon, right? I'm not Alakazam. I'm not going to look at the future. But that boss's orders was there, available the whole game. It was able to be played on that second turn or third turn. At some other point, right, he had the boss's orders. It was never played, and you have to wonder, could it have been played earlier, and would it have made a big difference? Caleb had no way of knowing their 2 rolls were priced, but perhaps.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. Yeah.
We'll never know. Well, I have some personal things to think about Gardevoir as I reflect on the last 50 minutes of Pokemon TCG action that we watched, and I'm sure you viewers at home will do the same if there's any devout Gardevoir fans out there. But that just kind of shows the dynamic that we were talking about is, yes, of course, attacking with Screamtail and Cresselia are important, but it sort of felt more important at the same time that sort of the aggression wasn't pushed when it was, right? You imagine that same situation, like, yes, Caleb was doing the same strategy, or a different strategy as his opponent was, right? His opponent was